Correct.
You took them a while ago.
And if you do have a few questions while there's something up there, just raise your hand because you may forget it by the time you get on there. And okay, here we begin. What's in our 7,400 acres? You know, that's a lot of acreage, and all in Ottawa County Park system. And I monitor, go through 53 parcels, properties. I try to every year at least set foot in them, wander around, and keep a list of what is there. Mainly the plants, but any animals encountered too. And there's a list of the 50 of them, and they keep on adding. Ottawa County Park properties, you can see the maps on there. They're scattered throughout Ottawa County, and the state lands are in the dark green there. Natural features, what do they include? Flora, all the plants, animals, fungi, lakes, rivers, bayous, streams, marshes. So just what is there in habitats? Endangered, threatened, and special concern species listed by the state of Michigan or federally. Plant communities, we have 76 described plant communities, distinct, unique in Michigan, and unusual things, unique things. So when Shirley, my wife here, and I wander around, we keep these things in mind, have a notebook down, write down everything, a GPS unit, and plant press in the car, and just looking for unusual things or whatever's around the corner. So in the lakes and the bayous, the streams, the forests and the fields, there's just such a variety. And the Lower Grand has these very unusual bayous. They're linear. Did you notice that? They're not meanders of a typical river like the Mississippi River. They are meanders, they're linear, and some of them are very, very deep. Where the river is 4 to 12 feet deep at most, some of the linear bayous are 25 feet deep, left over from when the Grand River was draining the glaciers, and very, very large at the time. Yeah?
Yeah, I heard you mention plant communities. What exactly is a plant community?
Good question. A plant community is defined by the DNR, Department of Natural Resources, of a specific type. To give an example, a bog. Okay, if you go out on a bog, it's spongy and so forth. You have pitcher's plant. There's a number of plants that are unique to a bog. A lakeshore, sandy or rocky, is also another habitat. A white oak, white pine forest is one that is in Ottawa County as well. And there are about half of the 76 or more are wetland, different types of wetlands and so forth. And we will see a number of them in here. The flora, vascular plants, means that anything that has roots, all right? Bryophytes, so bryophytes would be the mosses and the liverworts, and they get their nourishment directly from the air without having a root. They might have a structure to anchor themselves to the ground, and then lichens that grow on the trees and so forth. We live in a very interesting area with Ottawa County called the Floristic Tension Zone. You have a number of plants that are retreating with the glaciers, so they're northern species, and then you have a number of plants that are advancing with the retreat of those glaciers. They're southern species. And the bird watchers, you know the same sort of thing. You have northern species that are retreating with the glaciers, and then you have the southern species that are coming up, like the orioles, for example, cardinals, that sort of thing. And this floristic tension zone line just comes right on through in our area. So it's a fascinating area. So out of the nearly 3,000 vascular plants in Michigan, Somewhat more than half of those are from the south and half of those are from the north. But right here, we have that delightful overlapping, so you never know what you're gonna find. You have some of the remnants of the glaciers that were here in some of the colder areas, the bogs, and then some of the southern species that are coming up. And it's interesting to note which species that in Indiana used to occur there, but now they're extirpated. They're not found there. And many of those are found in Ottawa County Parks, at least for the present. And here's maps, just showing some of the maps of the northern species and southern species. Some of these plants you're familiar with. And the Grand River is a dividing line of many tree species: tulip tree, pawpaw, redbud, Kentucky coffee bean tree. Most of those are not found in the Muskegon River system, just in the Grand River system. And there are others that are found in the Muskegon and north, but not in the Grand and south. So we live in an interesting area. Flora, trees, shrubs, wildflowers, pteridophytes, the ferns, and grasses, sedges, and rushes. And so a little bit of the idea of the statistics, out of the 3,000 species of vascular plants in Michigan, about 1,200 occur in Ottawa County, and the latest count was 1161 in Ottawa County parks. So, and the species are going up and down as we find more of them. Trees, 97 species. Most at Grand Ravines. And then a little bit of the shrubs, flowers, pteridophytes, grasses, sedges, and rushes. Some of the trees, silver maple, some of them are gigantic, and that would be in the plant community of the floodplain forest. And black cherry at Rosie Mound, this one's about 4 foot diameter, one that the loggers missed in 1906 was when it was first logged in Rosie Mound area. And some of the things that are found in the area, the pawpaw and the flowering dogwood, beautiful flowers. And one of the rarities is a natural bank along Lake Michigan. And if you go from Saugatuck all the way up to Muskegon, there are very few areas where the bank actually is natural, going all the way down to the lake. And at Olive Shores, we have just a remnant of that was not washed away in the high water of the 1950s, 1980s. And so some of that is natural. You can still see the bank, but it is covered with the white pines there standing out. Just some of the variety of different trees. American beech. Why is that important in this area? Which bird species fed on beech? Yes?
Was it passenger pigeon?
Passenger pigeon, right. And they were here by the millions, and so were the beech. And Pigeon River, Pigeon Lake, Pigeon Hill, that used to be over in Muskegon, are named after the huge, huge flocks of passenger pigeons that were in this area. And at one time in Grand Haven, they said when they were migrating through, you would hear gunshots in the middle of the night, middle of the day, where the birds were low enough, you just point in the air and shoot, and then you had supper. They were a wonderful delicacy. Some of the different plants. And this is interesting here. I was along Crockery Creek one day, and logger, truck driver, was there with his load of walnut. And I said, wow, that's quite a load. Where is this headed? Germany. Wow, Germany, yep. He said, this came from floodplain forest, and this will go into the mills of Germany where they're gonna make veneer from that. And what's really good about this area, he said, you don't find a whole lot of buckshot in it. And I said, oh, and he said, well, that and other things. He said, oh, one time we had a tree that was loaded full of arrowheads, Native American arrowheads towards the center. And I said, well, what happens when your knives hit that? He said, well, they have a scanner that will check out any of those things and just shut it down. And I said, well, what's a load like this worth? Oh, 250,000. So a truckload, 250,000 of walnut. And that was out of the Proctor Creek Valley. Some of the shrubs, just a wide variety of the different shrubs, different types of areas. And wildflowers, we're always looking at the wildflowers. How many have seen this one? Familiar with you? Yeah. And some of the northern species here, starflower, fringe playgula. How many have seen these two? Yeah, great. And common milkweed, butterfly weed, mayapple, the lupine. Lupine not real common in Ottawa County. Much more in Muskegon County, Elgin County, where they have the outwash plain from the glaciers. How many have seen the green dragon? Beautiful, strange plant, and sister to the jack-in-the-pulpit. And if you want to see them, walk down in Jenison on the new trail through the floodplain, and they're rather abundant there, and they'll be a meter tall. Fringed gentian, long-spurred violets, some of the common ones that you can see are the long-spurred violets in the dunes. Bellwort. Just the variety of different flowers that we have. Weeds. 34% of the 3,000, the flora of Michigan, 34, 1/3 of them, about 1,000 are non-native. Okay, non-native. But some of them are quite beautiful. Unless you have a dog with birdweed. The chicory, you're familiar with that. Purple crabapple, sometimes this one is becoming not invasive yet, but it's starting to be found in the floodplain forests. Ferns, just quite a variety of ferns, 40 species in Ottawa County Parks. Ebony spleenwort, this southern species that in the 30s and 40s was very rare in Michigan, now becoming rather common, in sand especially. Cinnamon fern, how many have eaten cinnamon fern or other fern fronds when they're just coming up in the fiddleheads? Just a few. Yeah, they're not bad. Try them sometime. Some are poisonous when they get taller, so get them in there. Well, I guess people have allergies to them, some of them. And so some of the other things that we find are the round cedar. How many have seen those? And with their little pods and cones, and if you tap on them, you have dust all over the place. And in the 1800s, that's what they used for flash powder. When they took photographs, and they would have light it on fire and just boom, that big explosion, light it up, and they could take the picture. Did any of you ever have a professor in college who would do that? Take a bag of it and shake it up and then with a lighter light it on fire?
Sounds like fun.
Interesting results, yes. Oh, I should back up. There's one of the ferns over there that that I have collected along with its root, and there's the label down there, and it was a new species for Ottawa County at Stearns Creek. Grasses in Ottawa County Parks, 121 different species. Many of them are non-native. About half the grass species in Michigan are non-native. Okay, about 280 species of grasses in Michigan, and about half of those are non-native. Okay, keep that in mind. Compare that to the sedges. about 280 species of sedges in Michigan, found in a variety of habitats, and there's only 5 that are non-native out of the 280. So almost all of them are native and can be found on the beach and in the dunes to swamps, and they're a bit puzzling to figure out, but a lot of fun. The mosses and the liverworts and lichens, a difficult group. You need microscopes for them and a lot of patience for trying to figure them out, making slides. For the lichens, there's chemicals that you test them with that they react to. One of the lichens found at Kitchell Dunes was the first time that it was reported in North America. So it was had a worldwide distribution of 12 different locations, first described in Europe, but is disjunct. One same species was found in Korea, and the species, don't have a picture of it, is only 1 millimeter in diameter, so a very small lichen. And so it was the first North American record in Kitchell Dunes, growing on the base of a sassafras tree. Yeah.
Oh, what's the species name?
Oh, agonimia.
Okay.
Let me see. Yes, agonimia. They changed the name on that, but I forget it at the moment. Olive Shores. How many have been to Olive Shores on Lake Michigan? And beautiful park. We did the bryophyte study over there just to see how many we could find in just a couple of outings. And fauna, all right. In Ottawa County, 11 amphibians, reptiles, the mammals, the birds. Now primarily when I go out, I'll record any of the reptiles, amphibians, and so forth when I encounter them. As I get older, my ears don't hear the birds very well anymore. But we look for a lot of the different things and just record them. Insects, there's probably 5,000 available in Ottawa County. So some of the reptiles that we have encountered. The blue racer, the one that occurs in Kitchell Dunes and along the lakeshore, North Ottawa Dunes and so forth, it's a light subspecies, and it's endemic just to the dune areas of Michigan. Very rare. We've seen it a few times, especially in Kitchell. It seems to be a pretty good population. This is the darker phase, but the light phase, it's much more camouflaged in the dunes of the later dunes. Some of the amphibians here, 2 different color phases of the American toad, and I do not have a picture of the Fowler's toad, which is special concern in Michigan and occurs just along the lakeshore in a number of our parks. Some of the different mammals. How many have seen beaver in Ottawa or Muskegon County? They're coming back. Yep. Beaver are coming back. You can even find them as roadkill in strange places. Many birds. So the birds of Ottawa County in all the parks, I do keep records of what is there. I remember when I was first bird watching with Muskegon Nature Group, George Wickstrom back in the late 60s. Boy, if you saw a bald eagle, man, you celebrated. They were rare, and the last one to nest in Muskegon County at that time was in the 1930s. And George Wickstrom remembers seeing that over by Lake Michigan. They had a nest over there, and then gradually they started coming back. And turkeys too were just fantastic. If you found a turkey, that was wonderful, or a pileated woodpecker. And now these are all somewhat common species. Osprey too. nesting in this area. So some of the habitat, as the trees get older and the forests mature, these species are coming back. Here's a couple of them. Some of the fish. One time in Ottawa County Park, they had Dan O'Keefe came and with his nets and had a group of students, and we had 17 different species of fish out of the Grand River and out of the Bass River quarry over there. So it was amazing that all the different things that we were able to identify just in 2 hours. Some of the different insects that we have. The mollusks, clams, slugs. Many of the clams are listed species. The fungi. So such a variety of things that we run into. Plant communities. Floodplain forest, intermittent wetlands. 76 plant communities described. 19 of those occur in Ottawa County Parks. This was taken in Ottawa Sands, part of the old dune that is still there and not mined away, with some of the old white pines growing on it. Here's some of the natural plant communities, their rankings and then locations. Over there on the right side are all abbreviations for the parks. And then artificial plant communities at the bottom, they're not part of that 76. And the global ranking on there, Ottawa County Parks has several of them in the G2 category, where they're imperiled globally. They're that rare, but they're found in Ottawa County Parks. And many of them in state rankings as well, the 1 and 2. The dunes, rarity. They say little is known about the dune plant community or the dune habitat community. It just has not been studied as much as many other communities throughout the United States. So there's lots that we do not understand yet about our dunes right in the backyard. But many of the local colleges are very actively trying to figure them out. And they're so recent. These dunes just 6,000 years ago didn't exist. And so it's a rather recent phenomenon here. And Great Lakes Barrens, Kitchell Dunes has the best Great Lakes Barrens intact, with wet pans, little wetland areas in between. The dunes are moving. Here we have an active dune at North Ottawa Dunes, just covering up the forest and covering up the trees. And in places we try so hard to stop that, but active living dunes are a real rarity in Michigan, especially in Ottawa County. We have lots of dunes, but we like to stabilize them or mine them. And Mesic Southern Forest is one of those plant communities, and Hager Forest is the prime example. Gross Park would be another prime example of those forests. Mesic Northern Forest, North Ottawa Dunes, and inundated shrub swamp with buttonbush, okay, at Pine Bend. Some of the bayous, Connor Bayou, and we have quite a few bayou properties, especially with those linear, unique bayous. Coastal Plain Marsh is a number 1. It's very rare and threatened in Michigan. Hiawatha Forest, Riley Trails, Port Sheldon Natural Area, and North Ottawa Dunes has a few of these remnant areas that are, and they're called coastal plain marshes because they resemble marshes, especially in New Jersey, freshwater marshes, and similar plants. Many of the plants that are found in the marshes, coastal plain marshes of New Jersey, are also found in Ottawa County coastal plain marshes, and not in between. And so how they get here? Birds. Many of the seeds are very small and they have little barbs on them, little hooks on them, and they take a ride along in the feathers of the birds, and they get planted here. Many of them have become subspecies or even unique species just to this area. Great Lakes Marsh, here you can see the Grand River as it flows through near Grand Haven and floods. Most of our forest is successional forest. It's been logged for a dozen different reasons and numerous times. And so what we have is a remnant of the original forest. We have probably only 200 original forest acres left. The best example here would be Hager Forest, would be one of them, and Hardwick Pines up north, if you visited that area. Artificial plant communities, you've seen the pine plantations, and that are now starting to get diseases because they weren't meant to be planted 6 feet apart. But they are quite abundant and pretty sterile underneath. Endangered, threatened, special concern species. Bald eagle, SC, stands for special concern. Special concern species do not have the force of the law, do not need a permit to disturb them. But if you are disturbing endangered or threatened species with building projects, roads, or ditches, or anything, those need permits in Michigan. And here's a list of endangered, threatened, special concern species in Ottawa County. We do not currently have any endangered species. We used to, but they have been downlisted because through doing various studies, we found them not to be as rare as they once were thought to be. And so here's a list of plants, animals that are found in Ottawa County. And then we try to monitor, assess the population, send in records to the DNR. And Judy Manning with her photographic lenses has taken several of these pictures of some of the special concern species that are in our parks. Prothonotary warbler occurs in about a dozen of our parks. Red-headed woodpecker is found in a number of our parks. Red-shouldered hawk, peregrine. How many have seen all 4 of these? How many have seen all 4 of these? All 3 of these? Yeah. So the wood thrushes recently added to the list. Merlin was threatened, now special concern. And how many have seen the merlin in Ottawa County? Yeah. And when I was young, there were none of them around. If you wanted to see a merlin, you had to go to the UP. And they just were not in the southern peninsula at that time. Trunker swan, another introduction. Now nesting in at least one of our parks, nesting in, what was that, Grand River open space. There was a pair of them there last year nesting. And wood thrush is just found in a couple dozen of our parks, rather common at this point. And some of the plants, wild rice. How many have seen the wild rice in Ottawa County? Magnificent plant, 10, 12 feet tall, and in stands. This is what Native Americans harvested and held as very, very sacred. Once abundant in Ottawa County, and now reduced to about a half dozen sites. Hemlock Crossing, it's rather common locally in a couple areas yet, and just right off some of the overlooks. Pitcher's thistle. abundant in Ottawa County, even though it's federally threatened and state threatened. In '07 in Ottawa County, gave up counting after I counted over 4,000 individuals. So it is very, very locally common, but only in low areas of dunes. One of the interesting ones found at Rosie Mound in our hiking was one of the rarest plants, panicled hawkweed, a threatened species. Hadn't been seen in Michigan for since 1980, what was it, 1987. And they were looking for it, and it was going to be listed as extirpated, no longer found. It's an Appalachian species, and so they hadn't seen it in Michigan. It was never very common, but it likes disturbance. And at Rosie Mound, where they did some logging in the 1980s, on one of their logging trails, there were 12 plants. And it blooms, of the hawkweeds, it blooms very late in the year. Many of the hawkweeds are non-native, but this one is native. And since finding it here, this is the farthest northwest station in its entire world population. So it's an Appalachian species, but the one in Ottawa County is the farthest northwest location. So it's definitely a southern species. Now we are finding it in almost 24 different places in Elgin State Game Area. So that one is starting to show up locally over there. In Ottawa County, only one location so far. In the coastal plain marsh, you have this beautiful plant, and it's Meadow Beauty at Port Sheldon Natural Area, and it's locally abundant there. A southern species that barely comes into Michigan. It's a coastal plain disjunct species, so it's found in New Jersey, coastal plain areas along the East Coast, and also found in a few areas in Ottawa, Muskegon, Elgin County, along the lakeshore in general. Martinsium, Virginia bluebells. How many have seen this one? Just magnificent. Good. And beautiful plant. This was endangered, but through finding numerous areas in Ottawa County and Muskegon, they have brought this down to threatened instead of its endangered status. And in Eastmanville Bayou, it's there by the thousands. One location in Muskegon County, I estimated that there was about 6 million individual plants in a floodplain forest along Crockery Creek. So it was just locally abundant, and we found it in about a dozen locations on Crockery Creek and along the Grand River. And so with all that information, the DNR decided to downlist it to the threatened status instead of endangered. Wahoo, we're at Eastmanville Bayou. And here is our great leader of Ottawa County Parks, Jason Shamblin, with a gray rat snake in his hands. And I was amazed, we saw that and he went right over there and grabbed it. And so, over at the Grand Ravines, and everybody could see what it looked like. And it didn't bite him either. So, hooded warbler now is rather common in the dunes along the lake shore. And especially if you have good ears, you can hear them quite a long ways away. Eastern box turtle is now threatened, and it is becoming much rarer. A lot of people collect them illegally and send them to the Orient where they are prized, and a real pretty one like this one can fetch up to $1,000 and on the black market. And so they are becoming quite rare even in this area. Okay, this guy has a story. Doing an inventory at Port Sheldon Natural Area, I was crossing Tenhagen Creek. And the only way you can get across that is on a log. And so I was going across the log, just as I was getting to the other side, it's all swamp and you don't want to step in there, hard to get out. On a beach log, lying down there, was a slug crawling along there. And looked at it, it was just a foot away right there. And I looked at it and oh, it did not have a mantle. See that one in the lower right? It has a mantle. Well, there are 12, 13 species in Michigan, depends on who you ask, and only 4 of the 13 are native, okay? And they're all listed. And all the other ones are non-native, but they have that mantle. And so you can tell immediately, ah, that's non-native, you know. So you don't have to bother with trying to identify that. But there was this one, and I knew that out of those 3 to 4 species, they were all listed, so I took them along, had a little pill bottle, and put them in there. And on that white paper, notice that its mucus is kind of yellowish, and that's a clue as to what sort of species this is. They take on every species can look quite different, and this one is unique in having its mucus trail being orangish yellow. So I thought, well, it might be the toga mantle slug. It's hard to find information on slugs anywhere, especially to their identification. And the keys to slugs, you have to dissect them under a microscope. And first time through, I didn't want to do that. So, all right, trying to figure out, well, what is this thing, and trying to report it. Well, it lived in our refrigerator for about a month, and we fed it and seemed to be happy as one could be. And so I'm trying to figure out, okay, what is it? Well, you have to find a slug expert. That's not easy either. And found a slug expert in Texas. So emailed her some pictures, and she said, oh, I think you got this one right. I says, yeah, but its closest place where it was found is 400 miles away. And well, okay, the real expert, the world expert on North American slugs is at the Smithsonian. And the repository for slugs is at the Carnegie Museum in Pennsylvania. So I pickled it and sent it off with a label over to Carnegie Museum. And so this lady, another female, strange, I find that all the experts are females. Interesting. So she came up there and identified it positively, and it was indeed very disjunct from its normal range and found in Michigan. The first time it was ever found in Michigan. Its closest other place was in Ohio, where only one other was found there, and the rest are found in the Appalachian Mountains. So how'd it get here? Probably by a bird, but there aren't a lot of people looking for slugs either. And so there might be more, but I've been looking. And so that's the story of the toga mantle slug in Michigan. And you can see its distribution map there. So there's a few of them in Ohio, and now we have one in Ottawa County that's not on that map. Yeah, Bobby.
Have you been back out there to see if you could find any more of them?
Not on that particular log. Many other places, but yeah. Really, you don't encounter a whole lot of slugs in real wild areas. Yeah, garden slugs, yeah, they're all the non-native species. You come across those quite often, especially on your plants. Yeah.
You call it a mantle slug, but you said it doesn't have a mantle?
I didn't name it. I don't know. Interesting question. All right, climate change. Mentioning several of them that are now, these plants are not, these species are not found in Indiana, Ohio, Ontario, southern Ontario, but they still occur in Ottawa County, and some of them are still locally common. One of those is silverweed. It's found from Ottawa County northward. It's found by the thousands along the lake shore, but it used to grow in Indiana dunes and no longer found there. And okay, why do we do them? And what and where, why, how, just get into them. We first have to understand a bit of geology and history of the plant communities. Well, why are they here? What caused them? What are the land formations? So geology, of course, states, hey, this is what was left here naturally. History, the last 150 years, how did we alter that? And oftentimes the history is rather mysterious. We don't always know, okay, what plant community, we know what's here now, what did it used to be? And so we look at old survey, old maps, the lay of the land, soils, telltale signs. So let's see what we have. Okay, some of the geology here, well, we know what the glaciers did a little bit. We had 1.5 miles of ice up above us. And what did that leave us? Well, it left certain types of soils. Certain types of soils give us certain types of plant communities, and some of them quite rare. And then just the lay of the land, you can see a tree with the roots up, and that's about 12 foot tall on there. And if you go into an area and you find a lot of hummocks, you know that, oh, this area was never farmed, never plowed. What's here? And so you're starting to look around and try to see, okay, where's the fence row? Looking around. Agriculture, just how did that change the hydrology, the sedimentation? What fertilizers have to do with things? The insecticides. With all the sedimentation in the Grand River Valley, in the Grand River stream proper, there's no more wild rice. Now, in some of the bayous, you can still find it, and the smaller streams. So just sedimentation has come in there. We do have reports from the 1850s of people riding on the steamboats up and down the Grand River that there were vast areas of wild rice. And now they're cattails, phragmites, things like that. Kirby Farm, just seeing what is there, one of the old buildings on Crockery Creek. Comparing old maps with new. Ottawa County was one of the first counties in the entire United States that they had aerial maps in the 30s, because the soils were so degraded because of the blowing winds. And so they decided to do aerial photos of the entire county, and we still have those. And so it's a wonderful resource to compare. And now you can see at North Ottawa Dunes there, you can see the 80-acre lake that they created, and the curve, the Grand River there, and the sag. And you can see on the black and white photograph that's pieced together from the 1930s photographs of the dunes, what they mined away, what has disappeared. And you can see the blow sand in there. Some of the areas are still blow sand. Olive Shores, 1938, 2021. You can see it used to be a dairy farm over there. Parts of the barn are still there in the silo, and the trails. Now a lot of it has been planted with pine trees, and the large dune there. So you can see the difference. Rosie Mound, Wally Ewing, his parents had a cottage there. And the upper photograph is taken in the winter time. There's snow on the ground, but all those kind of black dots all over, those are stumps. Look at those carefully. There's a couple of them in the foreground there. And so that's after it was logged, that portion over there. And then the bottom photograph is the blow and how that has changed. So the next time you walk on that boardwalk in Rosie Mound in the lowlands, that's what it used to look like. And there were very few trees there. And so looking at old photographs, we can see some of the changes that have gone on, that have happened there. Soil maps are very interesting to find out, okay, what grows where. The sand, gravel, clay, and muck, different locations on where there is clay. Entirely different group of plants grow on clay and grow on sand. Still trying to find some good marl pits, if you know of any good locations where there's still some marl left in Ottawa County that hasn't been mined for fertilizer. And early survey, Ottawa County was surveyed in the 1830s, and checking out who owned what, and when they did the surveys, they went down the section lines and quarter sections. All right, so anything that was not in a quarter section line, a section line, square mile line, it didn't get recorded. But they recorded Native American trails, what kind of trees were growing on those section lines. And so just by studying some of those, we can get an idea of what is here now. And from those original survey maps, and all the data that was recorded, written down by the surveyors in the 1830s, they have put together now maps of, oh, what was there in the 1830s? So pre-settlement, pre-European settlement of Ottawa County, and that's the map there on the one side showing what sort of things were here. And you notice most of that green is beech, maple, hemlock forest. That's why we have the huge, huge flocks of passenger pigeons here. And a number of it white oak. That's why we had the shipbuilding industry here. We had white pine for the masts, and we had white oak for the ships, built right here in Grand Haven Harbor, right here on Harbor Island. They built freighters that were over 200 foot long out of white oak. Akeley, name sounds familiar. He was partial owner of one of the shipyards. And mapping out the plant community. So we try to go into an area and map out, okay, what's there now? What's left of what used to be there? And the maps made from the early surveys are not real detailed, so we try to find out what is there. In Ottawa Sands, the map of Ottawa Sands, because it was greatly altered, there are some areas that are still natural. And then in trying to recreate what was there, what do we have left? How can we nudge that a little bit to try to get back some of the natural plant communities? Looking at the signs, the stump fences. How many remember, the older people here, will remember going through Ottawa County and seeing rows and rows of stump fences along the roads? Remember that? Farmers would pull the stumps, white pine stumps, and put them as fence rows. There are still a few of them left in Hiawatha Forest and Stearns Creek. Barbed wire growing in the middle of trees. You know that some farmer wanted to keep something either in or out of an area, so you know, okay, really? This used to be farmed? Huh. And then the cut stumps. In a few areas you can still see some of the pine stumps cut in the 1840s, 50s, 60s, Ottawa County. Pole tags. Ever look at some of the old telephone poles left, and they have brass pole tags on them? If you look at them carefully, it will say that it was for electrifying rural America in the 1930s. So they put those poles up, and they cut a swath all between whatever the poles went through, whatever habitats. So you know that, oh, since the 1930s, this has been kept open on purpose. What's there? So you get an idea of, oh, at least this area has been open for almost 100 years now. Heronries, trying to locate some of the heronries of Ottawa County, what is left there. The data, what do we do? Okay, with this we can provide some baseline comparative data, so 10 years, 20 years, 30 years down the road we can say, okay, how does it compare? What's there, what's new? how have things changed? And so we use this information in many different ways. The reports, typical report, introduction, purpose, overview, floristic quality assessment, we'll get to that in a second. A little bit of the geology of history of every area that we look at, some of the maps, plant communities, threatened endangered species, recommendations, species accounts, which plants were found there, inventory, and floristic quality assessment. Every plant in Michigan has been given a numerical coefficient number from 0 to 10. 0 means that it's found in many different habitats. 10 is found in very specific habitat. All non-natives are zeros. Okay, so 1/3, if you go in an area, you find a lot of non-native species, they're all zeros. But if you have wetlands, they score rather high, because about more than half of our wetlands have been drained. So those plants that you find there have higher coefficient numbers. And through a formula, you can come up with a given number based on the plants that are found in an area. So instead of just saying, oh man, this is a beautiful area, look, it has this. With the plants that are found there, you can come up with an objective instead of a subjective, scientifically based on the plant species that are found there. This system was devised in the Chicago area, and now recently it has been adapted and adopted in every state, including Michigan was one of the first. So we can go in any park area or any given area and assess. First you have to find all the plants, okay? And then with that you can calculate the floristic quality, and anything with a 35 is, wow, that's really good. Anything over 50 is very rare, so 35 and 50. Here's some of our park properties that have had a thorough inventory, and you can see the FQI score, and Crockery Creek with a 65, and Stearns Creek has the record with a score of 76. So a score of 50 is very rare in Michigan. So Stearns Creek, why so high? It has a variety of different wetlands there, uplands, dry areas as well. And so a lot of Ottawa County parks that have had, you have to have a thorough inventory, they score rather high. Ottawa County Parks system then, when they are applying for grants, can use the inventory and an FQI score for its worth points.
Attention library patrons. The library will be closing in 30 minutes. All public computers will be shutting down in 15 minutes. Thank you.
Kitchell Dunes put that property on there, and just as of last night, I will be redoing a survey at Kitchell Dunes this year. So the last one was done in '04. So we'll have to see how it compares 20 years later. Documenting it with specimens. Every year I send in several hundred specimens. So it's a plant press that we lug around, and so there's plants everywhere. A lot of different information goes on each label. Gives you an idea. Yeah?
What do you mean you send in?
Okay, all of my plant specimens, and I have a permit for threatened endangered species, all of them go to University of Michigan Herbarium. So they're all there. They're searchable under William S. Martinus, and they're 5 years behind. They have to go there, and then they have to sort them all out. They have to mount them. I do not mount them. They mount them. They put the label on and so forth. That takes a long time. COVID really slowed them down. So I have about 1,200 species that are searchable at the moment. But they are 5 years behind. And but the information on it, and right now I'm in a project where I'm redoing the flora of Ottawa County. Many of our plants have not been collected since the 1800s. We don't know if they exist here anymore. And unlike birds where visual records count, plants, you need a specimen. So as Tony Resnichek, who's herbarium guru at U of M, he said, if we don't have a specimen, scientifically, it doesn't exist. Okay, so we have to collect. So botanists collect, yeah.
So you said that you were thinking of redoing the survey, picture linguistics.
Yes.
How long does the survey take?
Good question. We like to get into it for a full season. So if you start in August, you want to go through the next August. And so we'll be starting right away in April, getting the spring ephemerals, and as soon as we can, and then going back 4, 5, 6 different times throughout the season, and many different excursions to different habitat, and just to try to get the plants in their progression. Wetlands are at their best in August, and so you don't find a whole lot of different varieties if you go there early and just say, okay, we've seen it. And getting out there in winter, you can see the lay of the land. So getting out there, so it 1 calendar year, so you get through the 4 different seasons. In the lab, you got the plant, the habitats, the details, the resources, and you work through the keys. And down below, all right, see if you can figure out this plant. And stems 2 to 4 decimeters at antithesis, leaves ovate, rhombic, or subrotund. Notice all the jargon. Yeah. They have hairs on a plant. They have 30 different words to just describe the hairs on a plant. And you have to become familiar with them because this is what you have to wade through. And that's why a lot of people don't like going through keys or looking up descriptions. But if you want to make sure that what you have, any guesses what we have here?
It's a trillion.
Yes, trillion, you got it. What clued you in?
Trillion pink.
Ah.
Oh.
I was just gonna say that to see what's the hint. Very good. So that's the description of just the common trillium that we have all seen. But that's the fun of it too. Trying to figure out what do you have. Yeah. Bird watchers, you know what that's like. What does a bird look like and you have, ooh, that was a half-second look. Okay, that was a, and you identify it, yeah. And so some of the methods, search meander method, the 5 seasons, gathering data, recording the data, comparing the data, conclusions, more research, what needs to be done, and just giving you an idea. Some of the methods, here's just a little hunk of the data for Ottawa County Parks master list, just some of the plants here found, and then behind there all the initials of the parks that they occur in. And Ottawa Sands, here's half a page out of 9 total pages of all the different plants, and the dates when they're seen every year, and frequency, coefficient number there, common name, so forth. And we come across crazy things, and just taking pictures of those too. You never know what you're gonna find out there. And in Kirk Park, interesting, you have the narrow leaf spring beauty and the Carolina spring beauty, and you see that dot on the 2 maps there. On the one on the right, you see that lowest dot. It's the farthest south in its distribution in North America, in Michigan, where it is found together in the same park, growing almost next to each other in Kirk Park. Used to grow over at Rosie Mound, both species, but I have not seen them since the 70s there. Both species growing together right there. So, and finding cardinal flower, you've seen this along the roadsides and the ditches. Not real common, sometimes it is. Rare white form over in Riverside Park. And there were 18 of them just in a small colony. Orchids, 11 species of orchids found in Michigan. 10 of those 11 are native. Michigan has almost 60 species of orchids in the state of Michigan. Some are very showy, and some of them you think, huh, that one? And the fall coral root, the one there with the notebook in the background, occurs by the hundreds in the pine forest along the trail at Rosie Mound. And you'll find them by the hundreds there. Saprophytic species, Indian pipe, grows on dead, decaying material. Circumboreal species, and Cardamine potensis, cuckoo flower. It grows all the way around throughout Russia, Europe, Alaska, and in Canada, and here. And this one is the subspecies, and they still have not divided it up into two different species in Michigan yet. They're getting close at it. Someone working on their master's or doctorate degree will figure it out scientifically and prove it, and then the two species will get separated. And even rare, circumpolar. So here's the map from up above at the North Pole, and you can see all the black dots going around the North Pole. It also follows the South Pole going all the way around, and it's not found in between because it's a northern species or far southern species. Circumpolar species, I think we have 3 of those in Michigan. Lathyrus, growing at Olive Shores and Wind Nest Park, extirpated in Indiana, no longer found there. And just some of the different things. Here's hop hornbeam growing at North Ottawa Dunes, and you can see where the roots are exposed. So the sand used to be, about 6 feet higher and just blew out from over. And here's just the opposite. Here's a beech tree, and it's about 100 foot across, and this is just the top of a beech tree. So this one got buried, where the other one, that one got exposed as roots and over the years. This one got completely buried up, and so you just have the branches showing. Basswood, interesting, is like redwood. It will have the mother tree in the middle, and that will die off, and you'll have all its offspring, clone, growing on the outside. And so you see a basswood. Redwoods will do the same sort of thing. Walking stick, just unusual things that occur. And we'll leave you with this. There are a few junk cars found in the middle of nowhere. And the bottom right is in Rosie Mound. How many have seen that car at Rosie Mound? Ooh, you do get out. Okay. How many have seen the upper right over in North Ottawa Dunes? Okay. All right. How about the one closest to me? That is in Van Buren Dunes. Any of you see that one? It's upside down, by the way. No. Okay. In our last slide, refugia. Great word. Geographical region that forms a haven for relic habitats, flora, and fauna. And Ottawa County has a bunch of that. And we have one of the most unique and best systems in the entire United States right in our backyard. Other questions? Yeah.
Is the cinnamon fern still called a fiddlehead fern also, or are they two different?
Fiddlehead is a name given to many ferns because as they curl around the very, very earliest, and those are the shoots that you can eat, cinnamon fern has a spectacular fiddlehead, and so that's why it's often referred to as a fiddlehead fern.
And then I have one other question. At Amon Park,
Yeah.
are those Virginia bluebells there in May along with all the trilliums?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, yep. And that's a very well-known location, one of the first collected in Michigan. Emma Cole and her crew collected some of these species in the 1880s, 1890s. Yeah.
Where are like places to look for snakes in Ottawa County?
Oh, depending, what do you want to run into? It's hard to find rattlesnakes. They're probably extirpated. I've seen them when I was your age. They used to be over in Pigeon Creek. snakes are becoming rare, because people have shovels and they like to bisect them. And so, every park, you never know what you're gonna run into. Blue racers, best places would be North Ottawa Dunes, Ottawa Sands. Garter snakes, most common, coming up about anywhere. Black rat snakes in swamps, and shoot, they'll get to be almost 8 foot long, and they're usually kind of friendly. So you just run into them by accident. I usually jump because when I lived in New Mexico, I was bit by a rattlesnake on my boot, and it startled me quite a bit. And I still had the fang marks in the boot for a long time. So I would see a fan belt dead in the road and I would jump. So if I find a snake, I say, "Hey, Shirley, what is it?" Have her come. She's not startled. Yeah.
Do you have a book that contains this data that you can do?
All my data belongs to Ottawa County. They can share it with you, but I'm working on a companion to Chip Frankie's book on birds of Ottawa County, plants of Ottawa County, or vestigial plants of Ottawa County. However, as I said, all the specimens have to be collected. And I'm at about 600 of them right now, 700 of them. So I've got another 600 to go. So we'll be working at it, and just started at it seriously in April of this year. Got to go ahead of exactly what has to be done if I'm going to do that. Yeah.
Other places don't have these surveys, especially in this detail, right? So to start this, was it a academic group of people who decided to like do this sort of survey and collecting data?
Well, the person who, botanists are a strange breed, but Michigan has, getting at your question, has some of the best botanists in North America. History of botany in Michigan, starting with Michigan State. And so Michigan is one of the most collected of all the states. And so there's always been an interest in botany, but to figure out the floristic quality assessment, that was started in Chicago region, with Swink and Wilhelm were the first to invent a system of, okay, what is there, how can we make sense of this, evaluating a piece of, any given piece of property, comparing it with others, and saying, okay, this is valuable floristically. Now they're starting to do that with insects and with ants, believe it or not. In a 40-acre woodlot, a good one, you're supposed to have about 80 species of ants. But in a degraded one, oh, you're lucky to get a half dozen.
Yeah.
So by studying ants. Now, why haven't they come up with one with birds? I don't know of any yet, but that would be another one where maybe because there aren't as many birds and habitat distinctness, I don't know, you'd think it would work as well. Does that answer your question?
Attention library patrons, the
Are
library
there-
will be closing in
I was
15
gonna ask,
minutes.
are there papa
If you don't
animals
need to
around
check
yet?
out, please do so
Oh,
at
yeah.
this time.
Ottawa Sands, I run into them quite often.
Okay.
And they feed almost exclusively on toads. And so,
And
yeah,
what was the
puff-
question, is what?
Oh,
what-
puff adder snake,
Oh, puff adder.
eastern hognose snake, okay?
Yeah, last one I saw was a number of years ago. I was golfing out at Proctor Creek Golf Course.
Yeah, yes, they surprise you because they'll hiss at you and so forth. They're rather timid though, but they'll lie
Like
in the
a
back.
cobra.
Yes, yeah, they're fascinating to look at. Yeah.
I have two questions if we have time. First, is there anyone doing this work, or are you doing it in Muskegon County?
Dune Harbor. I'm doing, contracted to do the study at Dune Harbor, which is Muskegon County Parks.
Yep.
So I started that one in June and we'll be finishing that up in June.
Wow.
So
Thank you.
preliminary reports, similar to Ottawa Sands, but very different. A lot of good areas there. number one problem in all this area is deer, overpopulation of deer, cleaning out things. It's an invasive species. We need to bring back wolves. Cars can't keep up with them.
Could you talk for just a second, or did you just say what there's to be? I was surprised you didn't mention deer. Is it too big of a can to open right now, or don't you like to go there?
Deer are miserable. They're destroying our forest with much better finesse than a bulldozer at the moment. They're more effective because they get everywhere. And you look at the dunes, and you'll notice that the deer runs, like cattle on the side of a hill. So they're systematically destroying our dunes. If nothing is done, the vegetation on our dunes is not regenerating. Just go out there and look. And you won't find seedlings, you won't find saplings, and those that you do are non-native species that the deer and the digestive system just don't get along. So what we're like Phragmites. All of you know about Phragmites. There's native species that occurs here and a non-native species. Non-native species, there are 5 insects known to feed on that. The native species, there's 150 known insects that feed on that. And so it builds up a community. And with non-natives, we are not building up a community. But yeah, the deer are systematically destroying it, and it's natural. They're beautiful to see. Okay. Other questions? We probably we're going to get kicked out of here. Yeah.
You mentioned coastal plain marsh at Hiawatha Forest.
Yeah.
Was that pre-existing, or was that a result of the restoration that was done there?
Pre-existing. Did it exist there before logging? That we don't know. Plants come around along 31, on Fillmore and 31, there's a little area where they dug that out for the road. They have coastal plain marsh species there. So they can come, there's a threatened species that's only found in 5 different counties of Michigan, found in that little ditch there, and by Yogi Berra Campground, also found there. So if you build it, they will come. But now, were they there before logging, or when they cut down, when Akeley owned that land and cut that down in the 1860s and 70s and exposed all that sand and so forth to blow? Well, did some of those blow out to the water level? And don't know.
So when they did the restoration work there, where they worked on the drain and made the impoundments and everything, did that expand the habitat available for coastal plain marsh plants?
Around that lake, the ditch, no. In fact, there's concern that the ditch is too deep and may change the water table too much. In mind here, Ottawa County has over 2,000 miles of declared ditches and another 2,500 undeclared ditches along the road. So we have nearly 5,000 miles of drainage canals that were built by us, okay? And they're draining Ottawa County very effectively.
That's what they do.
And so that changes the water table for lots of different reasons, good and bad. Okay, there. If you have further questions,
again.
thank you.
Thanks everybody for coming. Stay warm. Be safe. Keep ill.